Economic Forum advisor Yuval Harari dismisses the New World Order as nonsense and fantasy. The New World Order that has been claimed to be a thing by Klaus Schwab himself and Joe Biden. There's been several speeches where both of them use that term specifically. And all of a sudden, this World Economic Forum advisor who's been at the Bilderberg meetings, who's been at, in Switzerland during all of these billionaires flying in on their jets to yell at you about flying economy once a year when you can afford a vacation. Let's see what it has to say. It says, World Economic Forum advisor Yuval Noah Harari shot down the notion of an elite global cabal working together to achieve a new world order, panning it as nonsense and fantasy. Harari, one of the key architects behind the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, made an appearance on the Lex Fridman podcast last Monday to cast doubt on the New World Order's conspiracy theory, claiming the world is too complex for powerful individuals to map out a global agenda, which will actually frame for us quite perfectly the next episode that we're going to be filming, which is about a document called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, which was a document outlined, allegedly, picked up out of a copier machine that was at a surplus store that somebody purchased. They found this top secret document called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and you should look it up. It's a wildly bizarre document that outlines the exact plan that we've seen unfold over the last 70 years. And this document was supposedly brought to light at the first Bilderberg meeting and formulated by the Rothschilds, where it outlined exactly mathematically how to socially engineer society so that you can have a elite class and you can have the absolute pinnacle and then have legal slavery of the rest of basically the entire world by manipulating financial unions. So we'll actually dive into all of this in the very next episode. So you should absolutely listen to that episode, which I will have out tomorrow for you. But you can't get it unless you subscribe. So do that. All right. So it says the global cabal theory has many variations, but basically there's a small group of people. Well, let's let him say it. Here you go.
Cabal theory, it has many variations, but basically there is a small group of people, a small cabal, that secretly controls everything that is happening in the world. All the wars, all the revolutions, all the epidemics, everything that is happening is controlled by this very small group of people who are, of course, evil and have bad intentions. And this is a very well-known story. That it's not new. It's been there for thousands of years. It's very attractive because, first of all, it's simple. You don't have to understand everything that happens in the world. You just need to understand one thing. The war in Ukraine, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, 5G technology, COVID-19. It's simple. There is this global cabal. They do all of it. And also, it enables you to shift all the responsibility to all the bad things that are happening in the world to this small cabal. It's the Jews. It's the Freemasons. It's not us. And also, it creates this fantasy, utopian fantasy. If we only get rid of the small cabal, we solved all the problems of the world. Salvation. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the war in Ukraine, the epidemics, poverty, everything is solved just by knocking out this small cabal. So, and it's simple, it's attractive, and this is why so many people believe it. It's not new. Nazism was exactly this. Nazism began as a conspiracy theory. We don't call Nazism a conspiracy theory because, it's a big thing, it's an ideology. But if you look at it, it's a conspiracy theory. The basic Nazi idea was the Jews control the world, get rid of the Jews, you solved all the world's problems. Now, the interesting thing about these kind of theories, again, they tell you that even things that look to be the opposite of each other, actually they are part of the conspiracy. So in the case of Nazism, the Nazis told people, this is what the Jews want you to think. Actually, the Jews control both communism, Trotsky, Marx were Jews, blah, 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 and capitalism, the Rothschilds, the Wall Street, it's all controlled by the Jews. So the Jews are fooling everybody. But actually, the communists and the capitalists are part of the same global cabal. And again, this is very attractive Because, now I understand everything. And I also know what to do. I just give power to Hitler. He gets rid of the Jews. I solved all the problems of the world. Now, as a historian, the most important thing I can say about these theories, they are never right. Because the global cabal theory says two things. First, everything is controlled by a very small number of people. Secondly, these people hide themselves. They do it in secret. Now, both things are nonsense. It's impossible for people to control a small group of people to control and predict everything because the world is too complicated. You look at a real world conspiracy.
And so what we're going to see from this is how ridiculous these statements are. When you look at the way that this document that I'm going to read to you in the next episode lays out, is he's right. It is a very complex world filled with complex people and complex situations. But when you can simplify the inputs and simplify the way that the herd moves and thinks, and with a long-term strategy and enough financial backing and enough data analyzation, you can accurately predict the way that people will respond to certain things, allowing you to both profit and manipulate people. Literally perfectly laid out in this document that I'm going to discuss here in the next episode. So maybe even I'll play a clip of this then. But let's listen. And just to say that, it's so ridiculous that a small group of people could control the masses. What has been humanity's, especially from somebody who wrote the book Sapiens, you would think that he would understand that a small group of people has always been in power over the large masses. Since ancient Egypt, since Rome, since there's always been slaves and there's been oligarchs. The oligarchs being a small minority who control the vast majority of people through monetary policies, through law, through government, through war, through all of these things, through education systems. We're going to break all of that down. But let's listen to this guy finish, which makes me a little sad. I have Sapiens and his second book upstairs that I would love to read through, and I still will. But to hear that he is this puppet for the World Economic Forum makes me a little bit sad. Let's keep hearing it.
Conspiracy is basically just a plan. Think about the American invasion of Iraq in 2003. You had the most powerful superpower in the world with the biggest military, with the biggest intelligence services, with the most sophisticated, the FBI and the CIA and all the agents. They invade a third-rate country, third-rate power, Iraq, with this idea, we'll take over Iraq and we'll control it, we'll make a new order in the Middle East. And everything falls apart. Their plan completely backfires. Everything they hope to achieve, they achieve the opposite. America, United States, is humiliated.
Yeah, because the people who we're discussing when it comes to a global cabal do not have a flag behind them. They aren't under the guidelines of a country. They don't care which country wins or who loses. They care that they profit the entire way. It's not about a country. It's about an organized grouping of banking cartels who inflate and deflate the economy of different countries and then invest in the very corporations that are going to thrive once they bomb its competitors.
They caused the rise of ISIS. They wanted to take out terrorism. They created more terrorism. Worst of all, the big winner of the war was Iran.
You mean the terrorists that we funded as the CIA and put into power both times that we both went in and left Afghanistan and Iraq?
The United States goes to war with all its power and gives Iran a victory on a silver plate. The Iranians don't need to do anything. The Americans are doing everything for them. Now, this is real history. Real history is when you have not a small group of people, a lot of people with a lot of power carefully planning something, and it goes completely out of against their plan. And this we know from personal experience.
Yeah, because you have people literally destabilizing nations like George Soros. We know this to be fact. He's literally talked about it, right? He's destroyed entire countries' economies overnight by like shorting their stocks, and like this is all intentional. It's a facade. I was trying to see if I could actually get some of the uh, any of the comments to this, but it doesn't look like it's allowed for them. So pretty wild. So what this led me to believe, I had somebody that came and talked to me about this. So let's go ahead and read through some of the response here. It says, Harari's dismissal of a global cabal who try to steer global events is particularly ironic. That's because Harari, a staunch transhumanist and social engineer, secretly attended this year's closely guarded Bilderberg meeting. An annual conference comprised of the most powerful individuals across banking, finance, military, media, academia, and business. A cabal, if you will, that meet to discuss in secret their agenda of the world while the public and the press are forbidden to participate. And it actually cites that source showing that he was there. Great Reset architect Yuval Harari arrives through the back door at Bilderberg as uninvited guest, and they have pictures of it here, of him actually showing up at this conference. An official list of roughly 130 participants released by the group on its website does not show Harari's name. Considering his role as a leading author and philosopher in the transhumanist movement, his background questioning humanity's role in a future dominated by artificial intelligence and other advanced technologies could make him a valuable contributor to Bilderberg's discussions surrounding AI, a topic listed on their agenda this year. Very interesting. All right, so let's see what else it has to say about this. It goes on to say that many of Harari's previous statements deeply undermine his argument that there is no New World Order agenda. Harari's claimed in 2019 that this age of free will is over because AI will soon be jacked into our minds and control our hopes and dreams. Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have this soul or spirit and they have free will. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will. That's over. Free will, he said. Notably, his mentor, World Economic Forum Klaus Schwab, co-authored the book COVID-19, The Great Reset, which outlines how to use COVID-19 to completely reset the global economy towards creating a more sustainable and equitable society by essentially de-industrializing the developed world and implementing social credit score initiatives. Almost like it's an agenda by the global cabal aimed at imposing their vision of the future onto the world. Who would imagine? Harari is also exposed by his social engineering ambitions by deliberating how to rid the world of useless people as AI becomes more prevalent, where he says, I think the biggest question, and maybe in economics and politics of the coming decades, will be what to do with all these useless people, he said. The problem is more boredom and what to do with them, and how will they find some sense of meaning in life when they are basically meaningless or worthless. My best guess at present is a combination of drugs and computer games is a solution for most. It's already happening. Fortunately, more and more people are waking up to the reality that the technocrats like Harari are trying to unilaterally determine humans' future. Almost like a cabal. How ironic that he's the one to come out and say that against that when he was at the World Economic Forum meeting. Very interesting. All right, so this is something that I found that somebody brought to my attention, and they mentioned that he talks about in the same interview with Lex Friedman the difference in the way that communists and fascists look at media and look at movies particularly, which I found to be interesting in the application of the more recent discussions surrounding The Sound of Freedom and all of the weird things that happened surrounding that. So let's see what he has to say, and we'll see how I can kind of attach this to what I'm thinking about here. So here we go.
No, not in the best light. The same with beauty. You know, how does a fascist determine whether a movie is a good movie? Very simple. If it serves the interest of the nation, this is a good movie. If it's against the interest of the nation, this is a bad movie. End of story. Liberalism says no. There is aesthetic values in the world. We should judge movies not just on the question whether they serve the national interest, but also on artistic value. Communists are a bit like the fascists. Instead that they don't place the nation as the main hero, they place class as the main hero. For them, history, again, it's not about individuals, it's not about nations. History is the clash between classes. And just as fascists imagine in the end only one nation will be on top, the communists think in the end only one class should be on top, and that's the proletariat. And same story. Your 100% of your loyalty should be to the class. And like if there is a clash, say, between class and family, class wins. Like in the Soviet Union, the party told children, if you hear your parents say something bad about Stalin, you have to report them. And there are many cases when children reported their parents and their parents were sent to the gulag. Like, and you know, your loyalty is to the party, which leads the proletariat to victory in the historical struggle.
All right, so what he just said there, I find to be interesting. He said basically that fascists only look at movies as valuable to the extent that they serve the country. So when you have a movie come out like The Sound of Freedom, maybe, where, I don't know, you see consistently over and over and over again, the fire alarms are getting pulled, they're spraying stuff to make it smell bad, the showings aren't happening, the air conditioning is off, the movie won't play. How many times, how many videos? I know people personally in my family who went to go see The Sound of Freedom and the fire alarm was pulled. How many times did we see this happen? There's reels and reels and reels of videos on TikTok and on Instagram that show how many times it happened. So how much did the news media, how much backlash did The Sound of Freedom get for drawing attention to the most atrocious thing that is happening in humanity today? You want to know why? Because it doesn't serve the fascist ideology. It doesn't serve the country. It actually hurts them because of how many people are in positions of power who participate in the very thing that this movie was calling out as terrible. That's why you have a media saying that you shouldn't go see this movie. That's why they tell you that you have brain worms if you go see it. That's why they call it a QAnon conspiracy movie based in non-reality, right? Just like this guy tries to tell you about the global cabal that doesn't exist, where there's billionaires who get together every single year to decide how they're going to socially engineer the slaves. You and I and the general public who don't have billions of dollars. That's a real thing. You know, just like the trafficking that was going on in The Sound of Freedom. So when it does not serve the country, when it does not serve the flag, then it has no value. And that's exactly what we saw with The Sound of Freedom. It did not serve their ideology. It did not serve them as leaders. So BlackRock and Vanguard, the very people who, you know, are getting exposed from OMG, from James O'Keefe Media, for, you know, socially engineering the entire country and wars and everything like that, where he came out and said, Ukraine, this war is good for business. And we know that. Just like we know there's a small group of people who socially engineer the general public through education, through war, through industrialization and distracting you with your jobs and taxes and not being able to get out of the rat race. So when he talks about this, how movies serve no purpose unless they serve the regime, unless they allow them to further their agenda, that's why you see it. And that's why every other movie that's come out that has a mainstream platform has some sort of indoctrination imposed in it subconsciously, at the very least, if not shoved directly down your throat. So thank you, Yuval, for both proving to us that the irony of somebody who goes to the World Economic Forum meetings telling us that there's no global cabal of elites who control and socially engineer the public, and then showing us exactly what was happening with the Sound of Freedom movie. Quite interesting, isn't it?
Adams Archive.